guys, what is going on? Redmaster here, and welcome back to another Cars and Castles video, where today we are actually going to be hopping back into another Everything You Need to Know. Now, we are actually going to be jumping into the Ninja faction, seeing as how we are very close to actually finishing up on all the factions. We only have one more after this one, that being the Druids. So, enough of me talking with the intro for now. You guys know the whole deal with this series. Let's hop right in to the Ninja faction. So where to begin with the ninja faction? Well, of course, the ninjas are a trick faction using amazing speed and return to the hand or bounce tricks to surprise enemies and gain advantages in combat, which utilize a variety of different mechanics. Of course, their unique ones include First Strike, which, of course, dealing damage before another monster can attack, so sort of like taking a hit and then letting your enemy creature retaliate. Stealth, of course, hiding a unit, making it so that you can move around the board undetected, unaffected by targeting specific spells. And evasive, which isn't really used all that much, but again, that is the can move after attacking. There are a few instances where evasive is prominent in ninjas. Of course, Trapdoor Ninja and Multistrike being examples. But the ninjas aren't exactly a great faction when it comes to numbers. They don't really have too much in terms of variety in their arsenal. They do have very sort of archetype specific or role specific, if you will, cards. You know, cards specific for bounce, cards specific for strike, for traps. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of diversity when it comes to that, but you do see ninjas a lot when there's usually things like OTK involved, one-turn kills, or right now what prominently is going around with ninjas, trap decks and dojos in that sense. So, they're a bit tricky in that regard, but I wouldn't say they're immensely overpowered when you take a look at it as a whole. Sure, ninjas may have very powerful powerful abilities and cards at their disposal. Cards like Dojo, Replacement Technique, Multi-Strike, First Strike. But when you take a look at it as a whole, the faction that, you know, or whatever deck is using the faction, can only really be run for that specific goal. They're not going to be able to branch out and help in other instances or scenarios. They can only fit their one purpose. Now, there are, of course, exceptions to this. Magic Eater, we see very prominent and powerful. Aijutsu, maybe even Ronin. The First Strikes, actually, maybe as a whole, can be considered more diverse than most of them. But cards like, let's take one for example, Secret Dragon. Usually you're not going to see Secret Dragon outside of trap decks. There might be some that run Secret Dragon, but usually if you're running ninjas and you want to include Secret Dragon, you have to be using a trap deck. Or else, why are you really including it? It would be much better for you to throw an Aijutsu over the Secret Dragon. Or maybe take another example. Let's go with maybe Kaiju. Kaiju is sort of a card that it's not in a good place right now in terms of where he was and where he is now. Big difference in that, but you can't really use him outside of a monster deck within the ninja faction, and anywhere else it just sort of doesn't fit. So that's what I mean by the sense of low diversity or low wiggle room in that term. If you're going to be using ninja, you have to stick to one specific role for that card. And although there are exceptions, which we did go earlier, it's mostly like this whole limit and role specific function of ninja cards is pretty widespread throughout the entire faction. And honestly, since TEG released, we haven't really seen a lot of the ninja faction except for in trap decks, which we all know are very rampant. I mean, a little less actually now that I'm thinking about it. We have seen less and less of them as time has been going on. But the ninjas we don't really see play a whole prominent part in competitive ladder competition. We do have a few ninja decks that are running around. I know of a great blue-purple rat deck, or rat bounce, that I am actually experimenting with myself a little bit. That's sort of like an oddball in the competitive mix, but it's still a very good deck, and it shows that while ninjas are this sort of overlooked faction, they do have power within them. Cards, as I mentioned, Magic Eater, very powerful. Aijutsu, incredibly strong. Um, Hell, even if you have uses for whatever ninja card that you're including in your deck, it's more than likely that it'll be probably one of the more powerful cards that will get you to your end game, will get you to your goal for the deck, sort of complete the theme, if you will. Although that does not mean the faction is without weakness, of course. We notice a general theme with ninja cards, specifically more units, is that they don't really have a lot of health, and if they do, it's not going to come maybe until later or given to it due to its incredibly high cost. Kaiju, for example, 5, 7, and 8 gold. I mean, we take a look at other, I think, 8 gold. Let me type in units in here. And I mean, we see like Ranger with 7, 8, Genevieve, sure 3, 3, but that resolve in armor is technically making it a 3, 6, not something that Kaiju could kill. I mean, Eye of Flame, that's an Eye of Flame. Villaroth can just instantly kill it. Kraxus at a 5, 7, pretty much the same thing as Kaiju, but honestly much better. Um, you know, we see Yenaroth, we see Rakanov with 8-7, technically thanks to the explosion. You kind of see where I'm getting at here. Stats aren't what the ninjas pride themselves in. And if you take a look at other things here, we're at 2-1, not that impressive. That's a Hassan City Guard stat, but with Hassan City Guard you're getting like 2 of those, so it's more bodies to work with. We see, I think, Kunoichi for 2, Ronin at 2-3. So it's not. I'm kind of getting off track here, but they don't pride themselves on very good stats. They kind of need a support. They play like a role as a support faction to keep them in the game. And on top of that, their sort of spells, or their good spells anyway, are usually quite expensive, with the exception of Vanish Strike. I think that one's pretty good in itself. And there's a couple others that you can maybe classify as being good. I think Shadow Katana, very strong. Dissipate is eh. I see it used in competition, but we take a look at other ones like Multistrike Replacement Technique, the Traps, Aijutsu, and Secret Dragon. They're all pretty expensive, and you could potentially be wasting a turn on them just to play them. So you're really banking on maybe a ninja spell helping you out in a tough situation, and that could be ultimately your downfall if you're not careful, relying too heavily on a ninja spell to help you. So I'd definitely say that's probably a good weakness of the faction. Not to mention the, of course, low wiggle room that I did talk about earlier in this vid, with each card and sort of how they're role specific. They're not a very powerful faction, I will say that, and they're certainly not prominent in ladder competition as compared to factions like Crusader, Pirate, Warlock. Hell, even Vikings have one up on ninjas. And I did say that Trap is the exception, and there are maybe a few oddballs out there that even I don't know about that utilize ninjas to an extent. But I mean, they're not the strongest faction currently on the board. Although Dojo is one tricky basher. We're not going to get into that here, though. Save that for another time. But how about let's go into some of the cards that I think are probably the most powerful out of the Ninja faction, and sort of give my rundown on why I think they're powerful, and why they're cards I think that pretty much you need to watch out for when playing against ninjas. And we'll start this sort of running down ninja cards. We'll start it off here with the Shadow Katana. Now, the Shadow Katana for 2 gold gives a melee unit +3/+2. That's some pretty powerful stats in my opinion, and if you're not careful, that can certainly surprise you. I would say probably the 3-2 is the biggest in the 2 gold range. If you want to take a look here for, reference here, I'm going to try, like, Battle Ready is 2-2, not exactly the best. Dwarven Weapons, 1 attack +2, Flame Shield 2-2. So Shadow Katana is effectively the most powerful when it comes to base stats on a 2G spell. And it's certainly proven that it can be a pain in the ass to deal with. A Shadow Katana unit is usually tougher to take out and requires more effort from your opponent to sort of effectively counter. And in a sense, if you use the Shadow Katana unit, you've forced them to make unfavorable trades, in a sense giving you a minor win by depleting the opponent's resources further. And that kind of goes this that's sort of true for any buff card, but I think Shadow Katana does it better. The more attack on this card essentially makes it much more deadlier to deal with as compared to the other +2/+2 buffs. Sure, those other ones have knockback and Inferno, but sometimes you kind of just need raw stats to get you out of a situation. You're doing that, you're putting that buff on for the stats. The ability is just a side benefit that maybe could hurt you if you're not careful with the Flame Shield. But for that reason, I think Shadow Katana is, again, a more dangerous card out of the ninjas, and one to certainly watch out for as we continue to move forward in TEG. There's been less of this card, but I think if people aren't careful, they could see Shadow Katana sprung on them and cause quite the problems going down the road. And of course, it is a basic, so everyone does have this card, no matter who you are in the game. So the versatility, or not the versatility, the open accessibility, I should say, to this card, again, only increases the power this card has. Up next is our good old boy, the Magic Eater. Now, if you've been playing for this game for a while, you know that Magic Eater is nothing to laugh at. For 3 gold, it is a fast-moving unit that gains +1/+1 when any spell card is played from your opponent or you, making this a very, very dangerous card. Now, we've seen this card blossom in a multitude of ways, and I'm talking multitude. Whether you're playing around with the Pirate Ninjas, and just having fun with maybe a Flux deck, to of course the Deadly Trap dojos that use this thing like a incredible tank powerhouse and a quick moving one at that. Magic Eater has been sort of the target for a, I mean, I wouldn't say a target as compared to dojo is, but people certainly are pushing for this card to have some sort of second look, if you will, and I don't really blame them. Having a unit that pretty much powers up with every spell played is no laughing matter, and a fast one at that. Fasts are very rare to come by in this game, so for Magic Eater to have that makes it even more deadlier. I will say to combat that effectively, you are going to be carrying, or you're going to need to be carrying some sort of removal, whether it be murders to make sure that guy doesn't grow out of hand too fast, Mercenary's Execution, Warlock Burns, whatever you have. I would say carry some just in case, because you never know where you can find Magic Eater out on the competition or out on the ladder, and it's just incredible ability to grow exponentially with stats due to just playing a spell card that you have no intention of using to help Eater. Maybe it's to distract your opponent or power up your own guy, a different guy other than Magic Eater. Magic Eater just gets that buff, and that the exponential growth without having to pay too much attention to it from the user is just incredibly powerful, and why Magic Eater, super good card, super powerful. If you haven't already used him in Ninjas, I recommend getting some ASAP. And similar to Magic Eater on this one, if you guys have been playing for a while, you guys know that Aijutsu is certainly one of the more dangerous, not only trap cards, but ninja cards in my opinion. When a unit is attacked, it gains +4 attack and first strike this turn. Now, we can see first strike, this unit will deal its attack damage first before the enemy can strike, essentially having the ability to pretty much nullify the opponent's attack and pretty much kill their unit if they attack. So that's already pretty powerful, but giving a unit an additional +4 to that, I think that's probably one of, or if not one of the, or one, not that, not if, I'm messing up here. Essentially what I'm trying to say is that this is probably one of the most biggest raw number stat boosters in the game currently. So to give a unit +4 and a hit first, you're more than likely going to be killing whatever is attacking your unit. And that's pretty insane. People are kind of using this outside of the traditional trap dojo decks because of how useful it is. The power to pretty much shift games is held within this card, in my opinion. Now, personally, I wouldn't mind seeing it drop down to a +2, because really first strike in itself is an incredible power to gain, and if your unit's strong enough in attack, then all you need is really that first strike. Giving it a +2 sort of keeps it in viable competition, but +4, man, it's really insane to see a unit like, essentially you could turn a Hassan City Guard, a 2/1, into a 6/1 that's going to hit first, and at that early stage can pretty much guarantee a takeout of any unit that attacks it. that is not probably buffed by, like, say, an armory or fat bard or something. It's incredible to see what this card can do. It can turn the weakest of units into a possibly, well, one turn only, unstoppable unit that cannot be killed because of that first strike +4 attack. And that's sort of why I personally think Aijutsu, one of the more powerful ninja cards, not only just trap, but probably the most powerful ninja card. That ability of +4 attack, first strike, devastating combination indeed. Our next one is a card that hasn't really seen a whole lot of play, but has its own sort of secret, unique power in its own right, and that's Multistrike. Now, Multistrike gives a melee unit evasive and an extra attack this turn. Now, for those of you that don't understand what that kind of does at the moment, evasive, of course, is the move again after attacking. That's sort of, well, that's sort of straightforward there. Alright, I give my unit the ability to possibly move away. Give him a temporary, well, give him a temporary rampage, if you will. Not as, not as cheap as, say, Bestial Rage, which is a 1G, give him rampage. But it's still sort of a rampage for ninjas in a sense. But the key thing to focus on here is the attack, or the extra attack this turn. For those of you who maybe think, oh, if it's similar to Rampage, then it's not going to be able to attack the same target twice. That's where you're wrong. Multistrike does actually, or has the possibility to hit the same target, and that sort of includes the castle. If I say use a Multistrike on a very high attack power unit and I want to hit face twice, I can certainly do that, bringing a huge chunk of my opponent's castle out. It's very dangerous in that regard, but it is, again, 4 gold, so people sort of see it as a bit expensive. It's sort of like a gamble in a sense. Can I put all of my, can I put my game into this multi-strike play and potentially, win it from here? And people have done that with multi-strike. I would say probably the funniest multi-strike combination is the replacement multi-strike suit, in which case that's a perfect 20 to face if, people are not careful. And I've experimented with it, I have. It's certainly not a reliable combination, but it's just an example of what Multistrike can do. It usually assists in a lot of one-turn kill combinations within the game. It's sort of the, it's part of the little OTK that exists in this deck, kind of moving away from that style. But the ability to, again, an extra attack is what I'm trying to get at here. It's very big, very powerful, and if you're not careful, it's 2 hits to the face, so very devastating, very powerful. A bit expensive, which is what's keeping it out of the overpowered area right now, but overall great card, and one that keeps the little OTK in this game alive and healthy. And our final card on this list, I should say, is the Ethereal Panda. Now, Panda is pretty much a completely different unit from what we once knew him as. He used to be able to assist in focus spell cost reductions and whatnot, but that's sort of a thing of the past. With focus spells sort of dying out, I want to say in the game, they pretty much don't exist anymore. He had to get changed up, and his new ability is quite the interesting one. For 6 gold, he's summoned at a 2/2 body, but has an initiative of returning up to 2 enemy units randomly or random enemy units, I should say, make that a little more clear, to their owner's hands. Now that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't say it's completely, overpowered and demands immediate. No, it's not. It's not that. It's when you start bouncing him that's where his true power lies. If you bounce the Panda, maybe mix it with a good little Throne of the Emperor in there, you have yourselves a brutal control deck. Bouncing expensive units, or forcibly bouncing enemy expensive units is pretty powerful. Forcing them to reuse that 7 gold to summon Ranger or 5 gold to summon Kraxus is pretty big and pretty much controls, or helps you control the board pretty well. Meanwhile, you can push up your guys a bit further, keeping them out of that attack directly from summon range. But it does allow you to build up your forces, hold out on the enemies from launching expensive Kraxus or whatnot. It just kind of buys you some time, and that's certainly something good to have. But again, when you bounce it, that's when it becomes the issue of, or not the issue, but it becomes, you're using him in a very controlling-like manner, and I honestly don't think this card gets enough attention. Maybe that's a good thing because it is initiative. It does work with Mystic Journey as well, so you don't even have to bounce him. You can just bam, Mystic Journey, 2 enemy units back to the hand for 2 gold. It's certainly has that potential. We haven't really seen it come out yet, but I think Panda potentially has the power to shake up things a little bit if people are not careful. So overall, great card, great change. But not saying it's not a great card. It's a good card, but it's a pretty good change, pretty great change. I'm losing my words here. To Panda. I do think he needs to lighten up a bit, don't you, buddy? I don't know why you're sad. I love you. I love you, Panda. Anyway, with that being said, I think that pretty much covers up our ninja card list for this evening. And with that being said, guys, if you did enjoy this video, please be sure to leave a like on it, share with your friends, and comment down below your thoughts on the ninja faction. And if you are new to the channel, or if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button, show your support, help the channel grow, all by clicking that subscribe button. And of course, we do actually have one more faction to go after this video, and that will be the Druids, hopefully coming out soon. This series has been pushed for quite a while. I was hoping to do it closer to when TG launched, and that was pretty much 2 months ago. But it shows you that there is pretty much a lot to cover in this faction. And do let me know if you do want to see other sort of everything you need to know videos pertaining to any sort of particular topic, whether it be cards and specific cards, archetypes, whatnot, certain decks maybe, etc. So with that being said, guys, if you until next time, I don't know why I said if you, but until next time, stay gaming.